didn't know. I accidentally created it. So it's going to have classes, all the yin classes in it. And okay, so go ahead and start sitting comfortably, whatever that is for you. And we'll have a nice long spine and start to slow down our breathing a little bit and come into our body. So you can let your eyes be soft or closed. Just drawing the air slowly in and down, all the way down into our belly, letting our belly relax. And then exhaling it all the way up and out, letting our shoulders relax. So it's the slowing down and lengthening of our breath that will relax the body and help us come into our parasympathetic nervous system. Gives the body the message that you're safe. It's okay. Just letting the brow, the tongue, the jaw, just letting go. If you want to add a little sound, feel free to, on the exhale, just whatever wants to come out. We might have just a little pause between the inhales and the exhales. That little pause, that little bit of a space. Also relaxes the body even more. Okay. And then just bringing your hands to your heart with your fingertips tapping around the heart and thymus, or you can do it with your hands flat, or you could do it with your fists, right? Just kind of gently tapping and stimulating our heart and thymus. Eyes can be closed or open. Continue breathing. Letting the mind relax. And then we'll bring our fingers up to our scalp and massage a little bit all around the scalp, stimulating our head and all the meridians that run through our scalp. All seem to converge here. And then massaging our ears a little bit, just kind of rubbing and pulling and massaging all the little crevices and earlobe. Stimulate the vagus nerve. It also helps us regulate. Then we can bring our finger just inside the ear and gently pull down and hold for a couple of breaths. Feeling the body relax. Right, and then go ahead and release your arms out from your shoulders, and we'll just do a little movement of our spine, just letting the arms reach forward, pulling the heart back, and then lifting the heart, reaching our arms behind us, feeling the shoulder blades squeeze together, and then reach. Good, just moving the spine here, lifting and rounding our back. Arching. All right, and then just letting your arms come by your side and relax. We'll come into butterfly, which is where I already am. So a long-legged butterfly. The feet are away from our hips, knees in a loose bend. If you need to sit underneath, on top of a cushion, if your pelvis isn't upright, make sure you sit on a cushion or something to make the pelvis upright, and then come forward. So you can just relax forward here, letting the hips, the knees relax. Having a pillow underneath the knees like this is really nice and helpful, especially if your hips are a bit on the tight side and your knees are kind of gripping a bit, or your legs are gripping a bit because of that. So we might massage our feet while we're here. Like, you can kind of just give your feet a little bit of attention and wake them up. Squeeze around. There's that point between the big toe and the second toe on top of the foot there, the liver point. You could press into that point if you like. Or there's the spleen point in the middle part of the foot, like right under the ball of the foot there. Press into that, massage. Kidney points around the inside ankle. There's one that's between the ankle bone and the Achilles in the center, right there. Kidney 1. And another one that's just below the inside ankle bone, just a little bit below that bone. You kind of just let your thumb or fingers guide you. You can usually find it just by feeling it. And then there's one just a little bit in front of that point toward the toes, maybe a half an inch or an inch in front of there. Another point. Really nice for releasing the low back. So probably a good idea for me to be doing this right now. Pressing on those points. Butterfly is a nice stretch for the gallbladder channel. Also, such a good stretch for our sacrum, right? It stretches the sacrum in all directions. Okay, so we'll slowly come up from here. Just walk your hands up and come to sitting. You might windshield wiper the legs if that feels good to you, or whatever feels good to your legs and hips. Move them around a bit. And then we'll just extend our legs forward out from our hips and come into caterpillar. So again, if you need to sit on a cushion, if the pelvis needs a little assistance to come forward, I'm just relaxing forward over the legs. Yin, we always want to come fairly slowly into a pose. Then just allow our body to let us come deeper into the pose over time. Just listening to our body. If you're able to round the spine, and if it feels good to let your head drop, we're also getting a really good stretch of our spine and decompression of the vertebra. It's pretty much the only way to stretch the spine and decompress the vertebra is by grounding, letting that roundedness of our back and the weight of our head do it. Isn't always possible for everyone, but if it is possible, then just let that happen. You might lift your head if it feels too much for your neck. Another thing I'll mention, most of us, those of us here that have been doing this a while, probably don't need it, but if there's anyone who has particularly tight hamstrings or tightness in the back of the legs, you can always put a folded up towel or a little pillow under your knees so you can support your knees, because we really want the backs of the legs to be able to relax in this pose. So it's really total letting go in the legs. Okay. Of course, we're stretching that gall or the bladder, the urinary bladder channel that runs all the way up the back of the legs, up through the hips and up on either side of our spine, all the way across our head, ending at the inside corner of the eye. Okay, so you can start to bring yourself up from there, slowly coming up, and then we might bring our hands behind our hips, lean back a little bit, and lift the heart. Maybe shake the legs out and give them a little wiggle. Or whatever feels good. You can also windshield wiper your legs too. Yeah, just get some movement of the blood flow going there. All right, and then we will come into shoelace. If shoelace isn't doable for you, you can sit cross-legged or another way that's comfortable. Bring your right leg on top, and we're trying to stack our knees as closely as we can, and you'll have a strap or a band with you. So like I said, feel free to sit cross-legged or whatever's comfortable for this first part. Take your right hand up with that band or strap. I'm using a strap. And your left hand behind the back. So the cow face, right? And start with a nice, lots of room in your band or your strap. So, because this is quite an internal rotation for that left arm. So lifting the right elbow, making sure our spine is nice and tall and our head is lifted. I like to lay the back of my hand that's on the back, I like to lay it flat without bending my wrist. It's most comfortable. Just finding what's comfortable for you. And you might slowly be able to work your hands closer together over time, but no need to push it. Right? Just letting time do the work here. You don't need to push yourself beyond what's comfortable for that, especially that left shoulder. lift our right elbow, get a stretch underneath that right arm. So we're into our upper body meridians a bit here in this pose. And if this does feel like you've been there enough at any point, you can come out of the arm position anytime that feels right for you. You can hold it a little longer. So all those upper body meridians that run through our arms and shoulders and chest. Right, there's the heart, lung, pericardium, small intestine, large intestine. And as we hold our band or strap, just making sure that we're not gripping too tightly with our hands. Just enough of a hold to secure it. And you can stay here a little longer if you like, or you can slowly come out and face it up to your own, whatever feels good to you today, right? You can stay there a little longer if you want. And then if you are going to be sitting in shoelace, you can just let your body weight come forward over your legs. And if that doesn't work for you, come onto your back into the supine version with the right leg crossed over and just pulling our knees into our chest. So you'll feel that hip stretch without putting too much compression onto the knees, right? Whichever one works. Or if you feel like you'd rather do a different hip stretch, you can also do another variation. Always feel free to do something different than what we're doing, as long as it's a yin pose. Hip stretches are obviously very nourishing for the hips. And we get especially the channels that run along the more outer part of the leg, the lateral part of the leg and lateral part of the hip. As well as the compression in the knees. Really good for our joints if you can handle it. The body can handle that compression. That's what stimulates, stretches, and nourishes those deeper layers of fascia, connective tissue. So we're going to slowly start to come up from there. So remembering that we always want to move very slowly out of a pose. Our connective tissue does not bounce back like muscle tissue does. It takes a lot longer. So coming out slowly from there, bringing your legs out in front of you, giving them a little movement, shaking them out. You might lean back on your hands. You might windshield wiper the legs, just whatever feels good to get the blood moving. Right, and then we will do a transition by coming into a straddle or dragonfly, right? So dragonfly pose is simply a straddle, bringing the legs apart as wide as you're comfortable to start with. That can always change it. And making sure we're sitting upright on the pelvis. You might have a pillow in between your legs or something, if you'd like to rest your arms on it. And then just coming forward here, relaxing forward, and not rushing into the pose, but taking our time. If it pulls too much on the sacrum to have the legs straddled and lean forward like this, you just want to bring your legs a little closer together and or sit on a bolster, right? Bolster the hips a little bit so that we don't hurt our sacrum. It's a nice stretch for the sacrum. We just don't want to push it too far. And dragonfly is particularly good for the bladder, the liver, the kidney, and the spleen channels. The liver and the kidney run on the inner legs, up the inner legs. The bladder on the back of the legs. The spleen goes up the side and of the leg and into the side body. And by continuing to breathe and let our attention be with our breath and our mind relax into our breath, we circulate the chi throughout our body, all the way throughout those networks that interpenetrate our organs, our limbs. Anytime we're forward folding, we are helping our body to relax and bringing ourselves more into our parasympathetic nervous system. So it's just a natural way to relieve stress. You might find as you're here for a while, you can widen your legs more, or you might find you need to bring them closer together. Okay, so we'll go ahead and come up from there, just slowly coming up to sitting, and let your, maybe lean back, let your legs slide together, and we'll come into shoelace with our left leg on top, or if you're sitting in a different position, I'm going to do half shoelace because I can't do the full version. You could also sit cross-legged, bring your strap, or if you're using a band, with the left arm on top and the right arm to our back, holding on there. You can find it. Again, starting with our tall spine, our head lifted, and very gently finding the place where we start to feel it, and then hold. Maybe rest, flattening the back hand against your back. You might be able to gradually work our hands closer towards each other. Breathing. Of course, one side might be different than the other, right? So just being aware, like one shoulder might have a harder time than the other. You always want to err on the side of safety. Right? And you have time as your friend. So it's never necessary to force a stretch. This is one of those poses, the arms part of this pose, that I tend to not do as often. It's not one of my favorites, but it definitely has some benefit for the shoulders and the stretch under that top arm for sure. And of course, if you ever need to come out of this, the arm part of this pose at any time, please do. You've had enough. Stay as long as you like. Then once you come out, you can just lean forward over your legs or come onto your back into that supine version of shoelace, hugging the knees into the chest, or even a different hip stretch, like a figure 4 stretch, is fine as well, as long as we're getting the stretch in the hip. You can do a different version of hip stretch. Just let this be your time, right? So we're not here to accomplish anything other than stretching and what we're doing in yin, but it's really, as long as it has to do with yin, it's all good. It all works. And feel free to come out of the arm part anytime you're ready. And continue with the leg version of shoelace or cow face. Maybe noticing that our breath is slowing down and deepening as we get deeper into the practice here. You might notice different sensations in the body that we weren't aware of before. You might notice a shift in your energy field, energetic body happening. That saying that the issues are in our tissues is definitely discovered when you do yin. The first time I did yin, I pretty much spent the next day crying. And I didn't know why at first, and I realized it was because of all that deep, deep stretching that brought out all those issues into my emotional body and let them out. I let them out. Okay, so we're going to slowly start to come out from there. Just take your time coming up if you're sitting, or coming out of your supine shoelace. Uncross the legs, and we'll have our feet close to our hips, hands behind the hips, and you can lift your heart and just lean back on your hands, or you can lift and lower your hips a few times, as high as it feels comfortable to you. We're putting some pressure on our wrists as if we're lifting our hips, especially getting into the triple warmer channel. Okay, and then we'll come around to Sphinx. So have a pillow, folded up blanket, or whatever you'd like to have there, and come onto the elbows. You might have your elbows a little bit wide apart to start with, or they might be a little farther away from you to start with. And just let your pelvis kind of relax here. So we might rock around. Rocking of the pelvis to bring us into this little back bend. So good for the sacrum to go back and forth between that forward fold, spending time in a forward fold, and then spending time in a back bend. Putting that compression and that force on the sacrum that keeps it healthy. A lot of people get a little bit afraid. They're not used to moving about back bend. It's a little scary if you're not used to it. But those ligaments that bind around the sacrum get really tight and fixate over time if we don't routinely stretch and compress the sacrum. So if you want, you can lift your feet and increase that compression and that stretch in the front of your thighs. Hip flexors also an option. Gets bothersome for the neck, you can always rest your head on your hands, right? Just your hands come up to your chin. I like to lift my head and get a little bit of a compression in the back of my neck. Good for the neck to do that, especially after we've been forward folding. Stretch in the front of the neck. course, back bends are so nourishing for our kidneys and our kidney meridian. So we'll take a short break in half frog. If you want to let your elbows slide out and rest your head on your hands, slide your left knee up toward your left shoulder, look to the left, and just let that hip relax into the ground. Feel free to adjust your leg however you like and explore that a little bit if you want. Or bring your right arm alongside your body if that helps your shoulder. Just let that hip go. And there's a pose you could stay in all day. So we'll slide that left leg back down and come back to Sphinx. Or you can put a folded up blanket under your forearms to make lift yourself up a little higher, or come into seal. Maybe widen the arms a bit and straighten them with our fingers spread wide. And fingers pointed out a bit like a seal. Also put a pillow underneath your pelvis and support yourself in seal if it's difficult to do, but you want to increase the lumbar flexion. Right? You want to come up into seal. You bring your hands closer to your body. You can increase that compression even more. And of course, feel free to, come in and out of any of the variations at any time of Sphinx and Seal. Moving in and out of them as it feels right for your body. And Seal, the butt muscles have a tendency to contract, which is also kind of a good thing. If you contract and release the muscles, helps your joints a little bit and gets the body used to the pose. Sphinx and Seal are the primary back bends in yin, right? There are couple more, but these are the most user-friendly. So that's why we spend time every week in Sphinx and Seal. It's so important to do the back bend, and I know that pretty much anybody can do Sphinx. So you can modify it by bringing your elbows farther out in front of you, farther apart too. So if you are up in Seal, you might want to start coming back down gradually. Just take your time to come back down to Sphinx. Let the pelvis relax. And then we'll come into half frog on the right side, and we can splay our elbows out, slide our right knee up toward our right shoulder and look to the right. Just let that hip go. You might have your left arm alongside you if that's more comfortable for the shoulder. Okay, and then we'll slide our right leg back down and come onto our all fours. If you're not able to be on your all fours, you can find another position that will allow you to move your spine a little bit. So we just want to gently start to move our spine, rounding the back, curling the tailbone under, and then coming slowly into an arch. Just very gently moving back and forth. Waving the spine. And then coming into a neutral position, circling the hips and just letting your body go every which way. Maybe a little bit of a spiraling motion here of our spine happening. Maybe your head is able to let go. And then the other direction. Okay, and then we'll sit back into a child's pose. So you might like your knees and legs to be together. You might like your knees to be apart. Your feet can be together or apart, which is more, if they're apart, it's more of a tadpole. Of course, if you need to be on your back, you can hug your knees, maybe come into a little happy baby pose. So the child's pose, also known as a resting pose, is so nourishing as well as beneficial for our joints. The stomach and the spleen channels compressed while the kidney and the bladder channels are stretched. Of course, the hip is Hips are stretched, the spine is stretched. If your arms happen to be stretched out in front, you're getting a stretch under your shoulder, if that's comfortable. Okay, so we'll come out from there, take your time, and we'll come onto our back. So hugging the knees into the chest. Make sure you have pillows or bolstering or nearby if you need it. Just hug your knees. Rock around. And then we're going to hold on to our right leg and stretch our left leg out on the mat, on the ground. Just hug that right knee in towards your chest. And then we'll open that left knee out to the side, slide our left foot up to our hip. So that hip is open. And take our left arm over our head, just wherever it's comfortable. Just relax it over your head, holding on to the right knee. Bringing that left foot as however close it comes to our hip here. And then we'll bring our left hand down and take hold of our right leg. And we're just going to guide it across the body and come into a twist. So if you want a pillow to the left side to support you, or two pillows, and just taking that knee across the body, letting your right arm extend out from your shoulder, making sure our right leg is supported and can relax, and our right shoulder is all the way on the ground. If your right shoulder cannot go all the way down, you're not used to doing a twist and it just doesn't go all the way down, then you want to support it with a little pillow or something. Just bolster that right shoulder. But we'll have our right arm a little bit lifted, a little bit bent. So we get a stretch through the front of the chest and shoulder. It's a nice stretch there. And your head can look whatever direction you like. It can look away toward that extended arm, or it can look toward the left side or up toward the ceiling. Just breathing into the twist, letting our breath massage our organs. Feeling that relaxing effect that a twist has. Okay, so we'll take hold of our right knee and draw it slowly up. Come onto our back and center our hip. Pull your left knee in and maybe just rock your body around a little bit, shifting bolsters over to the right if you're using them. And then holding on to our left knee, pulling that knee in, stretching our right leg down all the way out, stretching our legs away from each other. And then opening that right knee out to the side, sliding our foot as close as we can get it to our hip, letting that knee relax, open. Then bringing our right arm over our head, wherever it wants to go, where it can relax. Feeling that little opening in our right hip. Then we'll take our right hand to our left knee. You might adjust your hips a little bit, guide that leg across, coming into a twist. Left arm extended out, a little bit up, a little bit bent. And finding a place where your legs can totally relax. The bones relax here. So in yin, we do stretch the muscles, of course. That is a lot of it. But in a sense, we think about bypassing the muscle to get into those deeper layers of connective tissue and fascia, and even down into our bones, trying to feel our bones. As we notice our bones more when we're in a yin pose for a period of time. We do want the bones we do want to include the bones, right? They're definitely included. And by bringing our awareness there, that attention to our bones, makes them feel included. If your knee is a little bit high, you'll get the twist more in the upper back. If your knee is down lower, of course, you'll get the twist a little bit more in the lower part of the spine. Twists are such a wonderful pose to do as at the end of the practice because it is so relaxing to the nervous system and also stretches the spine and sort of brings the spine back into its restored state in a good way. So that's why we tend to end with the twist. Plus, it's very relaxing. It restores the nervous system. Helps with any feelings of stress or tightness. Just letting everything go. So you might like to stay in the twist a little bit longer. Really let your body tell you what it needs. Or if you're ready to come out, you can just come and relax on your back in any position and any way that feels good to you. Whether your knees are bent or your legs are straight, you can bolster under your head, your chest, your hips, but just taking a moment to integrate. So also maybe move around, hug your knees, whatever feels good. But we want to come into a place where we can integrate for a few breaths. And just breathing fully, feeling your body. Noticing how you feel. Feeling your heart, your heartbeat. Feeling your breath. Noticing how it's a little deeper, a little slower probably. Giving thanks to our body for always being there for us. Giving thanks to our breath, our connection to spirit. It's always there. And giving thanks to the earth, to Gaia, to the mother, for supporting us, always being there. So feel free to continue laying there. Don't get up quickly. Take your time if you're getting up. And thank you all for coming. Go ahead and do this. Go.